The Dershow.
They don't care about the structure of the Supreme Court, about term limits. They care about the fact that they lost in the Supreme Court. They lost Roe versus Wade. That's when it really started. Let's pack the court. Let's turn the court more to the left. And then, of course, the most recent decision involving presidential immunity. You can't change that without a constitutional amendment as well. What the justices decided in a decision, which I think may have gone too far on some of the evidentiary issues, but they decided that as a matter of constitutional law, presidents should have immunity along with members of Congress and along with judges. Does anybody want to take away the judicial immunity of judges, the immunity of judges from civil liability? Terrible, terrible decisions, immunizing judges from doing terrible, terrible things that were clearly beyond the scope of their legitimate responsibility. But immunity is part of the constitutional structure. And so they're not happy, the Democrats. I'm not happy with all of these decisions either. I don't think Roe versus Wade should have been overruled. I think the Supreme Court should have simply decided the case that was before it, 15 weeks in Mississippi, uphold that and say, wait until the next case comes up when a state passes a statute saying there's no constitutional right to abortion. We'll decide that case then. They didn't do that. So, just like I was opposed to the judicial reforms proposed in Israel, most of them, because judicial reforms generally, both in Israel and the United States, are proposed not to improve the quality of the Supreme Court in a neutral fashion. They're proposed because one side doesn't like what the other side has done. The Israelis on the right didn't like the fact that the Israeli Supreme Court tended to be left-leaning. And the left in the United States, the tribes, don't like the fact that the Supreme Court today seems to be right-leaning. It was left-leaning before, that was okay, but now that it's right-leaning, let's go back to Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Let's pack the court, let's impose term limits, let's do all of these things that will weaken the court, not to structurally help the Supreme Court to make it a better institution, but to make it an institution more compatible with the politics of our side. And, that's what's going on today. The rule of law is being weaponized by both sides. More the Democrats today than the Republicans, using the criminal justice system to go after Donald Trump. My book, Get Trump. I'm not a political supporter of Donald Trump, but I am a legal supporter of the Constitution. And the Constitution cannot be abused by weaponizing the criminal justice system. As I've said before in this show, the worst abuse, akin, maybe even worse than McCarthyism, because McCarthyism basis in the law, although it was dead wrong, completely wrong. When I was a college student, or when I was a law school student, I fought against it. But what the New York district attorney did to Donald Trump was worse than anything I've ever seen. Making up a crime out of whole cloth, creating a crime out of nothing. Taking a misdemeanor that was barred by the statute of limitations and turning it into a viable felony. Just wrong. And I think the same thing was true with the January 6th cases. And the Supreme Court has basically said, look, you can't just stretch criminal statutes beyond what they were intended to cover. So whether you're a Democrat or Republican, whether you're a Harvard Law School professor or a citizen who just cares about our Constitution, it doesn't matter. The Constitution is what makes us an independent country under the rule of law. And the Constitution is really important, and the rule of law is really important, and we're losing it. We're losing it primarily these days to the Democrats, although it's the Democrats who think the Republicans will take democracy away from us, and maybe they will, and you have a right to vote if you believe that against them. But so far, it's been the Democrats who have been denying us our constitutional rights. So, who's calling the kettle? I think both parties are at fault here. And I worry deeply about the enduring rule of law in the United States and our enduring Constitution. It's under threat from both sides.